Good evening, everybody. Do you ever get that feeling like normally you're supposed to have a lot of common sense, and then all of a sudden you have a day where that common sense basically goes out the window? I've had one of those days just now, and despite the fact that I shouldn't really do it, I'm still kicking myself over it. But of course, you didn't come here to find out if I'm self-harming over the lack of common sense. No, I wanted to talk a bit more about the Labour Party, because I do realistically suspect that Kier the Tool starmer, as I'm probably going to refer to him from now on, I feel like he's basically getting in power. But as I said before, it's more a matter of, is it going to be a landslide or is it going to be a close battle? But it's not Kier the Tool starmer I'm worried about. It's some of his cronies. Because there is one particular crony who has caused a lot of upset across the country, primarily in London. Give you 3 guesses who it is. Yep, that's right, it's Sadiq. Because my worry, more than anything, is that Keir Starmer would potentially get into power, and then he could basically step down, and then it could pave the way for some snake like Sadiq Khan to get in. I mean, think about it. We had the same thing happen when Liz Truss, our shortest ever PM, ended up buckling under the pressure and basically gave the position away to wishy-washy Sunak. So it does stand to reason why I'm very scared of this idea, and why potentially Labour could be putting in the worst PM ever. Oh God, I'm getting greeted now by some of my own workmates while they're biking home. Anyway, the one thing that doesn't worry me about Keir Starmer is at least he has a certain appeal about him. Not a great one, I grant, but would you rather him or Sadiq Khan? I think I know where my vote would be going. And just for clarity, no, I'm still fucking voting Reform. Screw the Labour Party, you know. But if I had a choice between Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan, I'd put 1,000 votes for Keir Starmer and a big fat 0 for Sadiq Khan. In fact, the only thing I'd be giving Sadiq Khan is maybe a bacon butty. Only I'd do the civil disliberty, or whatever the word is, the antithesis of politeness. I wouldn't even give him any butter in that bread. And as always, I'll make it perfectly clear to everyone, I'm not roasting Sadiq Khan because he's a Muslim. I'm roasting him because he's a crap fucking mayor. But if you think he's bad as a mayor, Christ, the mere idea, let alone the possible reality, that Sadiq Khan could get into 10 Downing Street potentially, should put cheers. No, I don't think it would put cheers in anyone's spines. It will put chills down anybody's spine, even the most stalwart person. Remember, this is the same failed Muslim mayor of London who basically tried to stop and search when it was categorically helping us drive down knife crime, which was being predominantly done by black gangs. But as always, don't just take my word for it. A simple Google search will, in 5 minutes or less, tell you that blacks were predominantly responsible for a lot of the knife crime in London. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, because say it with me, folks, it doesn't suit the narrative. He's also, of course, more importantly, the mayor who kept on pushing LGBT, which is ironic, because being a Muslim, he should know better than that. By which, of course, I mean he should know that Islam is not exactly tolerant towards homosexuals. They are quite generous, though. They give homosexuals a free one-way ticket from the top of a building straight to the tarmac, if you catch my drift. Or if they don't like that option, they stone them to death. But that's something the media will be very reluctant to tell you about. Though to be fair, if I was in his shoes and knew my religion was a third world shithole death cult from the 5th century, I'd probably want to do the same thing, quite frankly. He's also the mayor who brought in the very controversial and highly disliked ULEZ policy. You know, basically waging war against the motorists in London. The same policy that was actually deemed unlawful in, I believe it was the High Court, if I recall correctly. The same ULEZ policy that millions of pounds has not been paid into because people don't want to pay the fines. The same ULEZ policy that basically saw these thugs from Capital, whoever it was, essentially go and protect the cameras that were getting vandalized, which I don't condone vandalism, but I completely understand why the Blade Runners did it. In fact, I even said it in the past, didn't I? I said, it's not really criminal damage, is it, if the whole thing is illegal, which it truly was. In fact, I would call it camera liberation more than anything. And by God, those people were doing a public service. But that, again, is something the mainstream media won't like to say as. They would rather say it was Blade Runners committing criminal damage, even though there was no such criminal damage done. And the same ULEZ policy, of course, that even saw cameras erected in the most disgusting of places. Namely, I can recall one in particular that was done outside a fucking cemetery. Yes. Oh, actually, no, it was a funeral place. Basically, where you go to book in funerals and what have you. But it's still pretty disgusting nonetheless. Let's face it. That's the kind of shit Sadiq Khan has done. And that's before we even get into his links to terrorism. Namely, the fact that he had contact with families of people who were part of the 7/7 bombings, which, tragically, Sadiq Khan was able to have dismissed because it was apparently Islamophobic to say these things. No, it wasn't Islamophobic. If anything, what you're doing is trying to suppress your bad reputation and your credibility towards everyone else. Because if they found out that you were actually a terrorist sympathizer and effectively trying to give legal aid to terrorists, I don't think the British people would take too kindly to that, would they, Sadiq Khan? But you don't need to take my word for it. There are people out there who've already put this stuff out there. I can't remember one guy off the top of my head. Maybe I'll link his video in the description below so you can see it for yourself. Because there's one thing that truly terrifies me, and that is Sadiq Khan having the prospect of getting into 10 Downing Street. That, as I said, should send chills down anybody's spine if they have at least half a brain cell in here. To which I barely qualify, I've only got 2. Anyway, it should scare anyone. If this man gets into power, Sadiq Khan, we are all screwed. Because the way I look at things is Kier Starmer could well pull a Liz Truss on us, where he resigns as Prime Minister, and then Labour could, without general election, without letting the people have their say, put Sadiq Khan in power. Do you think he's going to support British people? Maybe Muslims, but that's about it. He's basically going to take a shit on everyone else, which is why you should be scared of this. It is why it is absolutely, unequivocally imperative that we make sure that we vote Reform. Even if they are not the perfect party for this country, what they are is a damn sight better than Labour or the Conservatives. Because the way I see things, as I've said before, and we'll say here again, both live streams and videos, is that the Conservatives are bad, but Labour will sink us at least 10 times faster. They will see the destruction of Britain. I mean, look at the Labour's track record with Tony the war criminal Blair, Gordon the bully and blundering Brown, or what about some of the other unlikables? Was Edward Heath part of the Labour Party, or was he Conservative? I can't remember. If he was Conservative, my apologies. But my point is, Labour's track record is dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Barely any better than the Conservative Party. I wouldn't even vote for those two parties if someone put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. Well, I suppose I'd be dead then. But the point is, I'm not going to ever vote for those twats, even if someone threatened me at gunpoint. I'd rather die. Hopefully it won't come to that, but it is what it is. Which is why in 2 and a bit weeks' time, we have a choice to make. Do we want to take a risk with the Labour Party, or do we want to vote reform and secure our future? In fact, I've got an even better way of looking at this. Because if Sadiq Khan gets into power, a vote for Labour will be a vote for Sharia law. And last time I checked, I don't think anybody wants to be a part of an Islamic caliphate. So on that basis, just remember that. Because I do not want this country to become Great Britannistan.